Assalamu alaikum. Today we are going to start with the chapter number 3, exercise 3.1s from IGCSE Extended Mathematics that is recommended by AQA examinations. Our topic is angles. So let's do the question number 1. Here in part A we have to figure out the unknown angle A, and also we have to name these angles, the type of angles. So to figure out the size of A, we will make the equation of the complete circle. We all know that the angles in a complete circle must be added up to 360 degrees. So if we add the angles A and the given angles, like the right angle which is 90 degrees and 20 degrees, so the three angles must be added up to 360 degrees. The reason behind this statement is actually complete circle, because the sum of the angles in a complete circle should be equals to 360 degrees. Okay, to figure out the size of angle A, we will solve this simple linear equation. That is A plus 110 equals 360 degrees. And now if we subtract 110 from both sides, we will get the value of A. So the final answer will be 250 degrees. So this is the simple solution of the linear equation, and we also have figured out the size of A. And now the size of A is more than 180 degrees. So this is actually the reflex angle, because we also have to mention the type of the angle. So this is the reflex angle. These are the very basic things that we are learning. Now in part B, we also have to figure out the unknown angles. So first we will write down the size of C. That will be exactly equivalent to 54 degrees. Actually, C is the opposite angle of 54 degrees that we call vertical angle in terms of angles. So that's why the size of C should also be 54 degrees. Now to figure out the size of D, we will consider a straight line. And on a straight line, the angles are always added up to 180 degrees. So to figure out the size of D, we will make another statement like D plus 54 degrees should be equivalent to 180 degrees. We will subtract 54 from both sides, and then we will get the size of D, that will be 126. And the reason we will give here that actually here the angles on a straight line must be added up to 180 degrees. So we'll just write down that we have used the property of straight line. This could be the reason for the size of D. Now to figure out the size of B, we will again consider a straight line. And this time we will consider another straight line, which we can mark over here. So again, the sum of B and this right angle and 54 degrees should be added up to 180 degrees. So we'll make another equation that will be on the left side. We will add all the angles like B and 90 degrees and 54 degrees and equate them equivalent to 180 degrees. So after doing simple calculations, we will actually subtract all the angles from 180 degrees to figure out the size of B. So we'll get B as 36 degrees. Now let's do the second question. In question number 2 and part A, we have to figure out the size of B. So the angles on a straight line will be again added up to 180 degrees. So we can say that 63 plus 3p equals 180 degrees. Now let's subtract 63 from both sides. We will get 117 over there. And if we divide both sides by 3, we will get the size of B. That will be 39 degrees. Now I will just write down the equation for part B and will leave the rest of the portion for you. Here in part B, the equation will be actually the sum of all these angles will be equivalent to 360 degrees, because this is the complete circle. And By the way, we can give the reason over here that the angles were added up to 180 degrees because of the straight line. And here in part B, when we will add all the angles like Q, 2Q, 3Q, and 90 degrees, and we'll equate them equal to 360 degrees, and then we will give the reason that this is the complete circle. That's why we are saying that the sum of all these angles will be equivalent to 360 degrees. Okay, so the rest of the portion will be done by you. Now let's proceed to question number 2, part C. If we see part C, we can see that 40 and 36 degrees are actually opposite angles, mean vertical angles. So we can say that 40 will be equivalent to 36 degrees, and the reason behind it will be the vertical angles. So to figure out the size of t, we will divide both sides by 4, and t will be 9. So by this way, we can figure out the size of t. To figure out the size of S, we will consider a straight line like this one. And here, the sum of S minus 2 and 36 should be added up to 180 degrees. So I will then rewrite the equation that S minus 20 plus 36 should be equivalent to 180. And after doing simple calculations, I will eventually get the size of S, and that will be 164 degrees. Now to figure out the size of R, we will again consider a straight line, but this time we will consider another straight line that will be actually this one. And here, to figure out the size of R, we can say that R plus 90 plus 36 should be equals to 180 degrees. So I'm leaving this portion for you that you have to figure out the size of R. Let's do question number 3. In question number 3, part A, we have to figure out the unknown angles by considering the two parallel lines and there is a transversal on it. So here, if you see, they have mentioned 68 degrees, and we have some other unknown angles on the parallel lines. A is actually the alternate angle. So the alternate angles, the size of alternate angles will always be the same. So it means the size of A will be 68 degrees. Similarly, if you see the C, which is mentioned over here, it is an opposite angle to A, means vertical angle. First, we will actually write the reason for A, that as it is alternate angle to 68, so that's why we can say that its size is also 68, and the size of C will also be 68 degrees because this is also the vertical angle, means opposite angle to the angle A. Now to figure out the size of B, we will consider 68 degrees and the B. 68 degrees and B are actually allied angle, or we can also say these are adjacent angles. So the sum of B and 68 degrees will be equivalent to 180 degrees. So to figure out the size of B, we will subtract both sides. We will subtract 68 from both sides. So we'll get 112. The size of B will be 112 degrees. And D is also vertical angle to the angle B, so it means that D will also be equivalent to 112 degrees. And now we can name these angles. First we will give the reason to the size of B, as these two were allied angles, so we can say these are two allied angles. That's why we have calculated like that. And 112 degrees is actually the size of D as well, so this is actually the vertical angle, so we'll say that it's a vertical angle. Now we will write down the types of angles. So here A was actually 68 degrees, means it was an acute angle, and also C is also an acute angle. because this is also less than 90 degrees. And B is actually the obtuse angle, which is more than 90 degrees. And D is also obtuse angle because the size is also more than 90 degrees. Now if we see that which two angles are actually supplementary angles, so the supplementary angles are actually the angles that are added up to 180 degrees. So actually the pairs A and B are supplementary angles. Also, each two angles which are on a straight line will be called as pairs of supplementary angles. So we can also consider B and C are also supplementary angles. Other pairs like C and D, and A and D are supplementary angles as well. Now let's do the part 2 of question number 3. Here, for the size of E, we will consider a straight line, this straight line. So the size of E will be actually equivalent to 99 degrees, because the sum of angles on a straight line should be 180 degrees. So we will just write that this angle is on a straight line. So this is the reason behind it. And E and F are two allied angles. Their sum should also be 180 degrees. So we can write, or we can also say that F and 81 are two equal sizes, two equal angles, because these are two corresponding angles. So F should also be equivalent to 81 degrees, and the reason behind it will be the corresponding angles. To figure out the size of G, we'll subtract 81 from 360 degrees. It will be 279 degrees. Again, we have to name these angles. So E is actually more than 90, so this is obtuse angle. This is less than 90, so F is acute angle, and the G has more than 180 degrees, so it's reflex angle. And here we have one pair of the supplementary angle, which is E and F. These two angles are actually supplementary angles.